G'day guys, Jay here for Mystic Justice. With the recent banning and then unbanning of We Happy Few in Australia, we thought it would be a good time to talk about Australia's long history with banning video games. Before we start, we warn viewers that there will be some adult content, so viewer discretion is advised. Enjoy!
Are you listening?
And kicking off our list,
What's mine's is mine's. What's yours is mine. I run these streets. This whole city is mine.
that's right, everyone's favourite PIMP. The Australian Classification Board refused to give Bulletproof a rating due to its graphic violence. They had particular issues with certain parts of the game, including when blood sprays onto the screen, where injured victims can be shot or killed as they crawl away or beg for mercy, and the slow motion death scenes. Apparently a 3-member panel for the review board played the game for a total of 42 hours and determined that the game be refused classification and in effect banned.
Bugs gave me a wireless earpiece so I could stay in touch in case of trouble.
Yo, Fitty, can you hear me? Got you right there on the screen.
However, in 2006 they tried again and a censored version of the game minus the arcade mode and a few minor adjustments was approved with a rating of MA15+. This resulted in over 60 complaints made to the board about an absence of an R rating for video games in Australia, which if we had one back then, this game would have been released completely unedited.
Well, if he's a confidential informant, my guess is he'll be the one with the wire taped to his chest. Look, do yourself a favor, man. Don't go down there alone. These dudes don't fuck around.
And yes, that was Eminem. Those that are old enough to remember have probably already guessed this one already. It's the infamous Manhunt. Yep, don't say I didn't warn ya. Originally, Manhunt was given a rating of MA15+ and was released for sale in Australia without any issues. Of course, this all changed because of this guy. Federal Attorney General Philip Ruddock, who later appealed the rating, banning it because of high-impact violence involving torture. In effect, it rendered the sale of Manhunt in Australia completely illegal. The Office of Film and Literature Classification stated that the game is not suitable for anyone to play. That's right, anyone. They warned that any stores that have the game must immediately remove the game from store shelves or face the consequences. There was even claims that this grisly game had influenced the murder of a teenager in the UK, although the good old boys in blue stated that this was simply not true and the murder was actually, in fact, drug-related. Coming in at number 8, Saints Row 4. This game has the honour of becoming the first game to be banned after the introduction of an R18 adults only rating for video games in Australia. Prior to 2013, Australia didn't have an adults only classification for video games, which meant way more games back then were being heavily edited or just straight up banned. But even now with an adults only rating, we are still having games banned and edited fairly regularly. So what was the problem with Saints Row 4? Well, in the board's exact words, interactive visual depictions of implied sexual violence not justified by the context.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
Off the bike, Sam Crow.
We have been betrayed.
Coming in at number 7, South
peace
Park,
we
The
once knew
Stick of Truth.
Shattered like glass. First came the goblins, then underpants gnomes, vampire kids, hippies.
So this one's a little different because it was actually approved with an R rating, however they wouldn't give it the approval until they removed one scene. No prizes for guessing what scene. Of course, I speak of the anal probe scene.
Jews can't be saviors, remember?
The problem with this scene, according to the board, was that the anal probe resembled too much of a penis, which was made far worse by the inclusion of underage characters. After multiple failed attempts to have the game cleared, the developers reacted to this problem in the only way you would expect the minds behind South Park to react. And get ready, because if you're not Australian, you've probably never seen this scene before. Aussies were treated to this. The funny thing is, the textual descriptions appear to be far more descriptive and offensive than the actual scene, which I'm sure was completely intentional. Well played, Obsidian. Well played. Next on the list, Outlast 2. Outlast 2 was originally banned because of implied sexual violence. The board highlighted one particular scene in which a female creature is thrusting against the main character while his wife is tied up in chains. Just a typical Friday afternoon. Another scene, which was described as a ritualistic orgy, was also mentioned by the board. Did somebody say ritualistic orgy? Apparently, this was just one big mix-up. Which has probably been used as an orgy excuse before, but the developer said that the scene was taken from an alpha version of the game and wasn't meant to be sent to the classification board at all. The game was resubmitted without the scene and received an R18+. And coming in at number 5, Postal.
I can tell this is going to be an interesting day.
Both the 1992 original and 2003 sequel were banned here in Australia, and both for the same reasons. At the time, it was considered the most violent video game ever made by some people. The official reason given for the banning of both of these titles was that it has high impact themes involving depictions of revolting and abhorrent content. And this was even after a lot of the more extreme material from the American version was removed. It was the board's view that the game offends against community standards to the extent that it should not be classified. In relation to the original version, the board noted that although the characters in the game are small animated figures, they were concerned that the soundtrack emphasises the fear and suffering of the victims. In relation to the sequel, the board highlighted some elements of the game they didn't seem to like. These included the black humour and the ability to commit suicide as a way to end the game. They determined that the violent themes exceeded strong and cannot accommodate an appropriate classification.
What you talking about, asshole?
Number 4, Fallout 3. When Australian fans of the series heard that the game needed to be changed before it would be allowed in Australia, everyone moaned, thinking drastic and ridiculous changes were going to be made. The changes weren't drastic, but some may say ridiculous.
Our American way of life. Isn't it grand?
What was changed? The word morphine changed to Med-X.
You can secure your family's future by reserving a spot in a state-of-the-art underground vault from Vault-Tec.
The Australian Classification Board had a big problem with the use of real-world drugs in the game, which may have been driven by Australia's massive problem with opioid addiction and methamphetamines. And these changes went global. All real-world references were removed from every version of the game. And now you know why they call it Med-X. At least Med-X sounds kinda cool and science fiction-y. Number 3, Duke Nukem 3D. Attacked by some who alleged that it promoted pornography and murder. The root of the controversy was the depictions of scantily clad female figures that could be seen throughout the game. And the president of Women's Media Centre, Jemiah Wilson, stated that the game was extremely harmful, especially to young women. The Australian Classification Board agreed, which led to Manacom removing the images of females in cocoons and female waitresses and dancers. The board had a few problems with this game, but mostly a problem with this.
Shake it, baby.
In Australia, the game was originally refused classification upon release. The game was later repackaged with the parental feature lock permanently enabled. Although you could get a patch from the 3D Realms website which allowed gamers to revert to the original uncensored version. Number 2. Mortal Kombat. In Australia, this was the original bad boy of gaming. Back in 1992, this game caused massive controversy amongst parents and public officials. This game is a pioneer when it comes to ultra-graphic violence. It went where no game had gone before, and the holy grail was the fatality. If you were gaming in the early 90s, no doubt you remember sitting around the TV anticipating that fatality. This was also one of the first games to use photorealistic graphics. Believe it or not, in 1992, these graphics were amazing, and far too realistic for many of the game's critics. Over the years, the series has faced many hurdles here in Australia. In 2011, the 19th installment was ready for release, and in February 2011, the game was refused classification by the Australian Classification Board due to violence that exceeds strong in impact. Warner Bros. Unsuccessfully appealed the decision to the Classification Review Board, who ruled the impact of the violence in Mortal Kombat is higher than strong and thus could not be accommodated within the MA15+ classification. Thankfully, after years of pushing from the gaming community here in Australia, an R18+ rating was introduced. And in May 2013, a fully uncensored version of Mortal Kombat was finally released.
Our tale must be retold.
Number 1. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now go grab yourself a muffin, cause it's hot coffee time.
Welcome to San Andreas, I'm CJ from Grove Street, land of the heinous gangbangers in cold heat.
Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. This masterpiece was released in Australia back in 2005 with no dramas at all. That was until it had its classification revoked following the hot coffee controversy. Hot coffee, for those who don't know, was a normally inaccessible minigame which was a bit of a secret. Previously, the minigame was completely disabled. The secret, however, became public knowledge with the release of the Hot Coffee mod created for the Windows version of the game. This mod granted access to the filthy little secret. The minigame allowed CJ to engage in sexual intercourse with his chosen in-game girlfriend, and was given its name because the game begins with your in-game girlfriend asking if you want to come to her place for some coffee. People found ways to enable the minigame both on the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox via hacking tools. Rockstar was forced to permanently remove this feature, and they soon released a non-modifiable second edition of the game. So all of us out there that aren't dirty little pervs, look away now. And by the time this filthy little secret got out and all the controversy started, over 12 million copies were sold containing this material. Consumers were offered the opportunity to swap their adults-only copy of the game for an M version which didn't contain the hot coffee mod, and not surprisingly, less than 3,000 people took up the offer.
We try to stay the hell away from these guys with principles, because that just muddies the waters.
Yeah, okay.
So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and hit that bell so we can see you in the next one. Have fun, guys!